Yo, welcome to the Healthy Wealthy Family through Real Estate live stream. Zach and I have done a handful of these now in our Facebook group and have since pivoted to doing these on YouTube because YouTube. Oh, yeah. Today we're going to be talking about nutrition and how important it is not only for us living, but how it plays into entrepreneurship and real estate investing and being able to focus throughout the day, and how it gives us energy. And there's certain things that Zach does that us and our family we don't do anymore. I did before Brittany, but we'll get to that. The meal planning and prepping stuff that I do actually miss a little bit, but I don't want to get too into the weeds. Zach, I appreciate you being here, brother. How you doing tonight, man?
Yeah, I am good. I am working through a cold currently,
Oh,
so I might sound a little nasally, so apologize for that. But yeah, I'm doing good. I'm excited. This is a topic for me that is so ingrained in what I do. You mentioned the meal prep, like that is like my Sunday mornings are like meal prep, and it's all because I'm focused on the nutrition portion. That is the most important part of it, right? They said the saying abs are made in the kitchen.
mm,
It's because you can do everything right, but you can't outtrain a bad diet.
yeah.
So it's super important, not only for losing weight, but for even gaining muscle, if that's what your goal is. But more importantly, like you said, that energy, that focus, it really helps fuel all of that throughout the day.
I personally, I've never been a meal prepper. Um, I used to go to Costco. This was a long time ago. I used to go to Costco and I'd buy just the big things of salmon,
Mm.
and I would cook the whole salmon, and then I'd eat it for like 2 or 3 days. That's like all I would eat. And when Brittany came along, she was like, "Nah, I'm not eating reheated fish. It's disgusting."
It is kind of disgusting. I will reheat anything pretty much. I think fish is where I draw the line.
Yeah.
I will do it, but it's definitely not something I plan on doing.
Yeah, there was an aspect of it for me that was like wearing, like, I don't know if Steve Jobs, the story of Steve Jobs, that he would wear the same shirt, not the same shirt, but like, the same shirt. It was just taking that off his mental plate. I didn't have to worry about it. It was there, the food was there, that's what I ate. I didn't
Yep.
have to think about it. Brittany's not like that. She likes variety and things, and I'm good with that. But yeah, this, like you said, this is something that's near and dear to your heart. So I want to try to zip it as much as I can and let you take the reins.
Yeah. And I think there's a balance between of simplicity is great, right? Getting rid of the decision fatigue and having a system around what you're eating and when. I think there's extremes to it, right? Eating salmon every day, reheated, maybe is one end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And then having the variety where, having a different meal every single day, different breakfast, different lunch, different dinner, every meal. Like that's what when I grew up, like my dad made meal Monday, this is dinner Monday, this is Tuesday, and there's a little bit of leftovers. So how can we be somewhere in the middle that makes it easy without eating the same thing day in and day out, which can get boring. I don't have an issue doing that, but I get it if people might. But also not having to make a whole bunch of different things because cooking takes time and then you have to eat it. And then the worst part is cleaning it up, right?
Yeah.
So how can we find the balance between simplicity and maybe boring and way overcomplicated and time consuming, right? That is the number one reason that I see with clients and just talking to other nutrition coaches and other coaches in general is the meal prep portion. It takes too long. It's too expensive. I don't have time. The kids want something different, etc. So how can we find the balance between all that? And I think keeping it as simple as possible is the key, right? You can dive into all the different diets out there and be super restrictive with what you're eating. But I think there needs to be some leniency because you can go strict. And even if you do go through with like a Whole30 where it's like 30 days, you're really strict. What's the plan after that, right? What's the long-term goal here? Because the diets typically just result in all of that weight coming back because we need to build the basic habits. So what are the basic habits that we can start working on? How can we make this as easy as possible? So what I like to look at, what we like to look at, is called the plate method for how you're going to build your plate. And from there, we can decide what are we going to go food shopping for and what foods are we going to get. And then that will fill our plate. And so the way the plate method works is you just look at a normal plate, like don't get this jumbo, like platter sized plate, but a regular dinner plate. And half of that plate is going to be dedicated to vegetables, right? Vegetables are great. They give you a ton of micronutrients, especially if you get, all of the colors of the rainbow, but they give you the micronutrients that you need. But more importantly, they make you feel super full and they're super, super not calorically dense, right? So there's very little calories per gram, right? You have to eat like 100 grams of carrots and you'll get like 4 grams of carbs, whereas that's like a quarter of an Oreo, right? And which one's going to fill you up more? Are you going to be more full eating 100 grams, like 2 big things of carrots, or a quarter of an Oreo?
Yeah.
So that's why the half of the plate of the veggies is super important, and it just gives a good visual. It's easy, right? The problem with veggies is they're boring, right? Maybe they're, depending on how you cook them, there's tons of different ways you can pan fry them, you can steam them, you can air fry them. But how can we make them fun and interesting? And we could talk about that in the meal prep on another one. But I think that's the most important thing, is like making it taste good, making it easy to prepare, but more importantly, just getting half of your plate full of veggies. Then we're moving on to the other part of the plate. That's going to be quarter of a plate is going to be protein, right? That's our chicken, that's our turkey, it's ground turkey, it's, ground beef. Typically you want like high protein or low fat. So like not 85% more lean ground beef. That just gets rid of the fat. So any source of protein. And then salmon is good source of protein. It also has a lot of fat too, which is not a problem. A lot of your proteins will be combined with fat. And then your last one is your quarter plate to fill out the rest of it is going to be with your carbs, right? That could be potatoes. It could be brown rice. It can be quinoa, really any kind of fruit as well. Just anything that's going to be starchy that kind of slow digest, right? The whole point of eating this meal is to feel full. And that's where a lot of issues happen when you go to somewhere that has fast food, right? Anything like bread or especially like that's fine if it's whole grain, but that's going to digest super quick. And then fast food is just going to like shoot right through you. It's not going to fill you up. And the whole point is to feel satiated when you're done. The veggies will help with that. The protein will help with that. And then good starches will help make sure that everything feels full when you're done eating that plate.
I like the plate gives a good visual. I always thought I always did like if I could have a fistful of a meat, that's pretty solid, and then maybe a double of the veggies. I, I tend to I tend to feel full uh, immediately after eating a bunch of carbs, and then feel like I'm like 30 minutes or an hour later, man, I feel like I need to eat some potato chips or something. Um, I don't know what that is about, but do you know, as you were talking about the veggies, it was interesting that you mentioned at first. Um, I mean, from this perspective, that I used to think that eating your vegetables last was better digestively, and I don't know if this is something that I recently read, especially regarding like salads and the more really fibrous stuff, that eating it first is better because it lines your digestive tract, making it easier for the other stuff to go through.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Personally, typically I would personally think you want to eat your veggies first, because they're usually the least tasty of all of the portions of the plate. So like that's how my wife does it. She like, we have green beans or asparagus. She like hammers all that real quick. And then like, let me get to the good stuff. Let me get to, the chicken breast that we have and the like potatoes that we made with it. So like that's her method. And I like that method too. I try to do it. I don't mind the veggies. But I do that personally first because that's what's going to be the worst part of the meal, even though I like it. But stuff does digest differently. I don't know about the lining of everything with eating the veggies first, but stuff does digest at different speeds. But that, focusing on that is more of like timing around like workouts and like having better recovery. Like fats typically will slow down the digestion of everything else. And when you're done working out, you want carbs and you want protein to help with recovery. So typically, like, we avoid fats around a workout, but that's more higher level, like nutrition and performance focused items.
Yeah. I think too, like one thing that I tend to stick to, which I heard a long time ago, and I think I was already kind of doing it just because that's where I tended to like the food. But when you're in the grocery store, shopping the exterior of the grocery store and you very very rarely or very choosily go into the aisleways because that's
Mhm.
where a lot of the processed, the soup, all the ultra processed stuff, the very high sugary stuff, that's where all that's stored. So if you can stick to the outsides, typically that's where your meats and your vegetables and your dairy, your fresh dairy products are held. So I think that's a good visual too. Like just walk around the outside of the store, and you're good. One thing on the store note is they tend to have the vegetables as the very last stop.
Mm.
Yeah, in stores. So I for us it makes things easier because I like to load the cart with all the heavy meats and things
Mm.
first, and then add the like light vegetables and stuff on top. But yeah,
That's it, because ours, I'm trying to think, our layouts, both of them, you walk in and the veggies and the produce is like right away, like right to the right. And then
oh,
so
interesting.
so you go around, and then it's the meats are in the back, and then the dairy and the cheese is on the other side, and then you kind of go towards the cash register. So ours is actually the opposite, but I
Okay.
prefer it the same way because most of the time, like, I want all my veggies on top because they're the lighter stuff and the stuff that's
Yeah.
usually going to be like broken in half or broken open.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's funny that
Uh,
ours is kind of the opposite.
do you have intermittent fasting is has been very popular, and I actually that's something that I practice. I find I don't find myself hungry for the first most of the day. Anyway, is that something that you do, that you approach with your clients or anything like that?
That's a for me, it's a personal preference thing for
Yeah.
sure. Because I mean, I don't. There's advantage to it. I'm sure you can find scientific data to back up kind of anything that you want to. I think it's more of a personal preference. Like, I personally, I could do it, but I don't. I'm up and I'm like, my body's like, you need to eat right now, and so I just kind of eat when I'm hungry. Spread my meals out too, but so some people do find success. I know my sister did it for a while, and she liked doing that. She'd like to be able to cram all of her food in the window of time, and you know, I certainly see the benefits of it. But again, I think it's more of a personal preference and really just having the other habits down first before you start trying to dial in like when you're eating and what you're eating and all of that. Like, the most important thing is trying to follow this plate method, trying to eat more veggies and more protein, because like typically those are the two things that people are lacking. They're not eating enough protein. I forget the statistic that like a shocking amount, like 40% of Americans or something, aren't eating enough protein throughout the
Mhm.
day. And then veggies, right? Another thing, just mainly for the micronutrients more than anything, but also to help you feel full, which will keep you from eating the potato chips later down
Yeah.
the road potentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, so for my clients, it's like, how can we create the habits? Like, what's the easiest habit that you need to create that we can create? So people do want to dive into like the intermittent fasting, the different diets, like, oh, when should I eat around my workouts and all this stuff? It's like, listen, we're not even eating enough protein yet. Like, let's
Yeah.
knock that out first. Then once we start getting that stuff down, let's start dialing things in and seeing how we can fit things in based on your lifestyle, based on your goals.
Yeah. I love that. I think that it's almost like you said that you can find data to back up any kind of thought that you have, right? Is if you pick something and you have solid foundations like you're talking about with this plate, the plate plan, that you can kind of work it however you want it. I've heard people that said, well, you got to wake up and you got to eat every 2 hours. And if you just eat every 2 hours, it'll work itself out. Because if you force yourself to eat every 2 hours, you can't overeat because you won't be able to eat 2 hours later because you'll be so full. And so your body will work its way into the right caloric intake. Which kind of nice segue there. uh, where do you land on that? I know that the so we talked a few weeks ago with Creighton on here, and Creighton was talking about cutting, and you guys were talking about at some point you do a bulking thing. That's not something I've ever really paid attention to. I was just like, eat the right stuff until I'm full and then be done, and I'll eat again when I'm hungry again. But um, is it? I definitely can see that if your intention is to be losing weight, you should be kind of focusing on being in a deficit calorie wise.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, when it comes to gaining and losing weight, it's just a math equation. It's what am I consuming, what's coming in, right? If that's 2,000 calories, what am I burning if I just sit there, right? You have normal bodily functions, your brain's doing activity, making your heart pump, your muscles, and all of that. So you have just a basic energy usage just from that. Like if you laid in bed all day, you'd burn, I don't know, 800 calories or 1,000 calories, just like laying there, not doing anything.
Yeah.
And then obviously once you start walking around and moving, even if it is just taking simple walks or even just doing stuff around the house, that's going to increase your calories too. So if you're eating more than you're burning off, you're going to gain weight. And if you're burning off more than you're eating, then you're going to lose weight. It's just it. And everybody, those rates of loss and gain happen differently for everybody for a bunch of different reasons, which is why you can find data to kind of back everything else up. But in general, most of the time people are overeating. They don't realize it because they're snacking, right? Especially now that I have a son, like he doesn't finish some of his food and he eats a lot of the same stuff we do. Like we meal prep stuff so that way he can eat it too. So he's eating a lot of the same stuff anyway. But I would be lying if I said that his little bag of Cheez-Its that he gets, I don't steal a couple here and there, or, he tries to give me some. And it's like, yeah, a couple here and there isn't a big deal, but over the whole day, over the whole week, like that starts adding up. So I think people don't realize how much they are overeating, especially on the fats and the carbs, because they don't fill you up that much and they're very calorically dense. So when you start switching over to focusing on not even changing anything else, but adding in veggies, you're going to feel fuller and chances are you're not going to have any other things later. So again, it just comes back to those basic fundamental habits of just doing our best in general. Then once you have that dialed in, okay, am I really let's start tracking stuff and let's really increase the rate of loss by being accurate with what we're eating, what we're consuming, and keeping track of our weight as we go through that. So that is definitely more of if there's 3 levels, that's like a level 2 plus 3 level of nutrition and getting healthier.
It's funny you mentioned the Cheez-Its because that's especially I don't know if that's the ones that you get but the reduced fat ones. It's not because they're reduced fat or they're healthier. I just like those ones better. They're a little crunchier. I can't keep that stuff in the house because even if I'm full, I'll still go eat it.
Yep.
And yeah, so we can't buy it. When Brittany, much to her chagrin, she will ask for stuff. No, if you get a gallon of ice cream, I'm eating the gallon. I'm gonna eat the gallon, and it's gross. It doesn't make me feel so good later, but
it's so good. It's so good when you're eating it, though.
Yeah, as you're doing it, it's so delicious. Yeah.
When I graduated school and was living at home for the first couple of years, so I'm 22, 23. Bowl of ice cream, 3 scoops with some chocolate syrup, sprinkles of whipped cream every single night. I couldn't do that now. I mean, I could. I wouldn't feel great, right?
No.
But I've switched to because I get that sugar craving and that sweet craving at night for sure. So I switched over to something that's at least a little healthier. It's not perfect, but most of the time things don't need to be perfect. It just needs to be a little bit better than the alternative. So yeah, the ice cream. I have Cheez-Its now. I went to Costco hungry after the gym one time and saw the big double bag 2 pounds. And I have a handful of them every night, and it's it's one of those things where it's I do well the other 80% of the time. I can have some here and there, and I know tomorrow I'm going to go back to the way it was before. But I've spent years and years building the habits to have some sort of goal.
Yeah, that's you mentioned it kind of early on where you're like, oh, I could go do this 30-day, challenge, and what's next, right? We have to be able to. I mean, not everybody has to be able to, but be able to cheat in a sense, right? And treat ourselves to certain things. Brittany and I do. We'll look at each other and be like, Sonic, you want some Sonic today? Yeah, okay, let's go do Sonic, right? Those are the little things. If you're, and you mentioned the 80%, right? it's kind of that, it comes up all the time as in entrepreneurship as well, the 80/20 principle. Like if we can be doing the majority of things the right way, or the principle with the right foundation, then doing those other things and having a half of an Oreo every now and then is not the burst. It's when you eat the whole sleeve, and like I do. Like,
And even that too, like even like in one sitting, like yeah, you do it and you don't feel great after, you don't feel great about yourself after, like it's delicious while you're doing it. But I think more importantly is not letting it carry over from just that session, like being able to move on from it and not going, oh, I had a sleeve of Oreos tonight, and then waking up in the morning being like, oh, that sleeve of Oreos just ruined the day yesterday. So like today's a wash too, and then today
right.
turns into this week and this month, and then a year goes by, and you're like, what the hell happened? I've gained 30 pounds all because of one sleeve of Oreos.
Yeah, because of that one sleeve.
Right, whatever that is. And that's what happens, is that you let it cascade into multiple days. Even going to, like, trying to link it back into real estate, like you skip a day of analyzing properties, or you skip having a team meeting that day, or doing your outreach to potential private money lenders, or whatever that might look like. Then that carries over to the next day. Like, oh, I missed that yesterday. I don't have it today either. And then that just rolls in. And next thing you know, it's like, what? I haven't gotten anywhere. And so, like, just moving on from, call it a mistake. I don't necessarily think it's a mistake. I think they're just going to happen. But being able to move on from it and just commit to whatever you've committed to yourself that next day, and forgetting about what happened in the past, because it doesn't matter anymore. So that's the biggest thing, is just like not letting it snowball, because that tends to be what happens. And then time flies by and you're like, how did we get here?
Yeah. I want to make sure that we're respectful of time here. We don't want these to run too long, but we've talked about on the plate a lot. How about in the cup?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't drink a lot of water either. So if you're getting 60, 80 ounces a day, like, let's hit that goal. I mean, carry around a water bottle with you. And, if that's a 20-ounce water bottle, shoot for 3 or 4 of them a day. Like, if you do that, you will, it'll help you feel full. You'll be hydrated, which will make you feel good. It'll give you more energy. But it's so easy to drink the sugary drinks. And, those sugary drinks have so many carbs in them, and they don't fill you up at all. So that's another thing where it's like, fine, if you have 2 sodas a day, when you're done that soda, immediately have a glass of water with it, right? And just, it's not about cutting everything out. It's about adding the good stuff in, because eventually that good stuff will start taking over the bad stuff, because you'll be so full and you'll feel better after the good stuff. So that's the biggest thing I think from this whole thing, is like adding things into what you're already doing and not changing anything else, because you'll be less resistant to adding things in versus, all right, if I told you you can't have any more, soda in the day, what are you going to do? You're going to be like, I want soda.
Go drink a 12-pack. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the biggest thing, is like, let's add in. What can we add in? What's the easiest thing for you? A lot of times is, let's drink some extra water. Let's add some veggies to the plate. Let's add some protein to the plate. If you do nothing else, I guarantee over time you will feel better. You will lose some weight, and things will get moving a lot quicker.
Yeah. That's really the biggest thing of this, and why we wanted to do this now, is because it does, we are Healthy Wealthy Family through real estate, and we've been talking a lot about the real estate and the entrepreneurial stuff, and missing out on the very first part of the Healthy Wealthy, which is the healthy. And because it plays into, the reasons we put it first is because it plays into everything else. And we dropped the ball on that a little bit, because we're very focused on growing our real estate, and so that's what we thought maybe was the best path. But the healthy, especially from the nutritional standpoint, it plays into everything. Like you said, you can't out exercise a poor diet, and you're not going to be able to outwork it either, because if you're eating crummy foods, was it garbage in, garbage out? Right. But if you wake up and you're drinking sodas and eating sugary stuff, by noon you're going to feel like garbage. If you're waking up at a normal time, I mean, if you wake up at 11, you might maybe feel this on top of the world. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you might not even realize that you feel bad, because you felt like that for so long. And
It's your normal, yeah.
When you start notice, like you start increasing the good things, you'll start being like, wow, I can't believe how much better I feel and that how bad I must have felt before. So I think that's the big thing too, is just like you might not realize and things might be fine, but you're building this real estate portfolio or this business, and 20 years down the road, maybe that's exactly where you want it to be. Everything's passive. You're, got tons of properties, tons of equity, and your health is gone. And then what? Like, where do you have now? Like that, yeah, it'd be great if you can start focusing on it, but why not start focusing on it now to help build both up at the same time? Because the habits are so hand in hand.
Yeah. I would like to leave with some, I don't know, action steps for people. Do you have anything, any other things you want to add before we part?
No, I mean, I think I don't know if you had an action step ready to go, but I mean, my initial thought is that I would love for people to post, and maybe we can do it through our Facebook group. Like I can start doing it in there as well, and we'll add this in. But like, post what the one thing you're going to add in to your nutrition is, whether it is adding protein in, adding veggie in, adding water in, whatever that might be. And on top of that, let's take a picture of the plate, right? That's a nice, easy thing. Like, let's take a picture, let's post it. And, if you're not sure if that's the right thing or not, post it, tag us. We'll give you some feedback and see what you can do. And I think that would be fun to see. I think it's always like whenever we do challenges with clients, we do 10, 20, 30 people challenges. There's a group chat and people are posting what their meals are, pictures of it, like what their recipes are. People are asking, exchanging recipes. So I think it'd be fun, kind of little thing to do. So
Yeah.
What are you adding in? And then take a picture of that plate. And even if it's just once a day, that way we can see what you're doing. It's going to make you more cognizant and hold you more accountable to doing it.
I love it. Yeah, and if you do want to come into the Facebook group, literally, if you just take the first part of the title of this video, Healthy Wealthy Family Through Real Estate, and search that on Facebook, it should be the thing that pops up. If you look, I will add it into my show notes. I'm sure Zach will be able to add it into his description. What I wanted to leave with is leave a like on the videos. On if whoever's channel you're on, please put a like on the channel. If you're enjoying the content, subscribe. But get yourself a little notepad. Where's mine at? Oh, I dropped it. Okay, I'm going to hold up a slightly bigger notepad. Okay, mine's the one that I wanted was smaller than this. Whenever you put something in your mouth, be it water or an Oreo, write it down. We're going to do an ingestion audit. We do time audits on our days, which is every 15 minutes I write down what the heck I did for the past 15 minutes. Or 30 minutes if I'm on like a 30-minute call. That way at the end of my day, my week, I can look back and see where were some time sucks that weren't the best use of my time. We're going to do a nutrition audit. Where were the things that I could have added some stuff in and replaced, maybe supplemented, and where were the things that maybe oh man, I didn't realize that I was drinking 15 sodas a week. I didn't even think about it. I've just been doing it so often. That's been my go-to. And because I've been writing it down and I've been tracking it, now I look back and I'm like, oh, even if you cut that in half, that would make a huge difference, right? And adding that water in instead. So if you're ready to take some action here, I would love to, and Zach would as well, if you do a week's worth of this and you want somebody to go through it together with you, let's sit down and talk with you and see where we can help you kind of discover where some gaps and things are in your diet and in your weekly nutrition habits. And this is both in the cup and on the plate. So with that, I appreciate you, brother. Thanks for being
Love
here.
it. Yeah, thanks. It was fun.